Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Economic Preppers. I'm your host, as usual, Jeff here, and I got Dylan and Patrick. Dylan, how's it going today?
It's fantastic. Glad to be back in my studio. Glad to be here. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about today.
Oh, we got a ton to talk about. Patrick, we got lots of talk about crypto and everything. What's top of your list today?
DXY.
Okay. Well, we got a lot to talk about. We got Super Bowl coming up. We're going to talk about that too. That's actually going to be part of our woo-woo. We'll allude to that in a little
What'd
bit.
you say?
Yeah,
Super
the
Bowl.
superb owl. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But let's get to the agenda and go. We got so much to cover, so I'm just going to start ripping through it here. So, first thing that we talk about is we're talking about the balloon, right? Most everybody knows about the balloon now. I think we've shot that out of the sky. It's all done. It was over my old stomping grounds of Myrtle Beach. I had friends calling me, telling me like, "Hey, this really happened. We heard the boom. We heard it. We saw it." Dylan, what do you make of that story?
Just entertainment dripped out by the media sources. Like, sure, maybe there was a balloon, maybe it was a spy balloon, but let's be fair. Like, there's real spying going on, and it's consistent, and it's done with more advanced technologies and resources than a weather balloon. There's whole satellites for this. There's teams of hackers. There's teams of people scouring the internet and everything, spying on everything that we do. So I think that it was just something to distract the public, to create a spectacle, to add to the news cycle.
Patrick, any thoughts on the balloon of the balloon of all balloons?
So
It's just a bunch of hot air.
I think that my wife had the best take that made me. I think she had the best view. It was what if the U.S. government set it off? And I was like, I mean, that doesn't sound crazy either. So I'm not really sure what to believe, except for one thing. Whatever it was, wherever it came from, whoever sent it off, America should have shot it down. And my favorite group are the Texans. They had the best meme going around, and they said something like, "Waft it on over Texas. We'll take care of it." Because that's it's not going to survive in Texas. So they skipped Texas.
Yeah, I think that we've had some interesting stories the last week. The other big story was the State of the Union, the State of the Confusion, however you want to call it. That was this week. There was definitely some chance from liar, but I don't know if you guys got any comments on that, or we can just gloss over it and get to the real stories. But any comments on the State of the Union from either one of you?
No, I mean, just my stance on so many of these things. Just like, they're distractions, right? You're not going to get the real information, the real news, the real details, the real alpha, as our guest Bill last week talked about, from the mainstream news publications, right? If it's there, it's there for a reason, and everyone already knows about it. So you can pay attention, just kind of be able to gossip about it with the normies, but other than that.
Yeah, I think that there's a lot of distractions going on this week, and there was certainly definitely some interesting stories. First off, like the Grammys that came out, I think it was Sunday, in that performance between a non-binary Sam Smith and a trans person who won the Grammy for the first time. That was more just, I think, just Hollywood beating their chest again, trying to get attention and eyeballs. But there's definitely, we're going to call back to that later on when we're talking about that superb owl and Super Bowl weekend. But the other big story is Twitter was on Congress the day after the State of the Union, and there was a lot of discussion back and forth. Patrick, any thoughts on you're a big Twitter guy. What was your take on that?
Dude, they were shutting Twitter down. There's no ability to have followers. I couldn't follow anyone. I couldn't message anyone. It wouldn't let anyone follow me. I don't know what's going on with Twitter right now, but Twitter's always a great place for news. I do have to say, I kind of appreciate Elon on that fashion, because it did kind of loose the gates up a little bit for more information flow. So that was really nice. But to me, it was it was insane. I actually left during the State of the Union address and decided to go and have a date with my wife. And I came back and I felt better than I would have, I know, if I sat there and watched it. Because as soon as I came back in to pick up my son, my parents, my father-in-law and mother-in-law were watching their State of the Union at that time. My father-in-law was like livid, right? He was like, and I just heard what they were talking about. I was like, this is absolutely nothing new. The guy said it best on the radio that morning when I was coming in. They said, if you're playing one of those drinking games, use something light because you're about to get drunk real fast. We know what's going to happen. The only thing that he could have possibly said that would have been like, can't believe he did that. If he would have said something like, hey, we have a fentanyl problem and we're going to do something about it. It's a problem. We're done with that. Sorry, we mishandled it. We're on it. Like, okay, that would have been genuine, but whatever he gave us all was completely unauthentic and didn't really matter to any of us. It kind of got glossed over.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of also there's definitely distractions, all these different stories that are out there. But there's any more comments on that before we get into the economic news that we started? Dylan, any comments on like a couple stories that we just breezed over?
No, I didn't hear much about the Twitter story. But if there is pushback on there, it makes perfect sense. Like, it just changed ownership in one of the most dramatic fashions of the year, and is a major source of public discourse. And when you mess with that, there are entities that were probably heavily invested in the way it was that might be incentivized to punish the parties or people that kind of took that away from them, or not even in a nefarious way, like in just a way like, hey, they were operating on the platform and now it's changed and they're not happy about it. And so that's going to create ripples. And so seeing that just says that things are being shaken up. And it's not necessarily good or bad, it's just something to pay attention to.
Yeah, this is kind of like the new Congress, like digging their heels in, getting these Twitter people about their censorship out there and what they did about the last couple of years medically, and also other things that like the laptop and all the different things that they were out there, and it's just getting things up to the 230 things coming back up again. And it was interesting. I heard that I think it was C-SPAN lost the feed at one point for whatever reason, and they had to go and replay the State of the Union instead. So interesting that Twitter wasn't available. I think YouTube had issues. It's amazing how these big entities that are hiding behind that 230 regulation, all of a sudden it didn't work of all days. So, but we're also economic preppers here. So let's talk a little bit about the economics. Patrick, I know you're chomping a bit there to talk about the DXY. Where do you want to go with the dollar and how it's looking this week?
Okay, so pull up the chart of the DXY, Jeff, because this is something I want to bring up. We know in the history, when the DXY goes up, when the dollar is worth more money, it takes less dollars to buy Bitcoin, right? So then all we have today in the last couple of days is Bitcoin going up, up, up. And then all of a sudden when the DXY is crashing, Bitcoin is also crashing. Why is Bitcoin down to, what is it right now? 21,851 as we're talking. I have no idea what the heck is going on, because right now what we should be seeing is an inverse relationship between the DXY and Bitcoin. So now we've got Bitcoin that is free falling even before the DXY starts free falling. And then as it continues to free fall, Bitcoin dips a little bit. So I'm trying to understand here what's going on in the correlation between the DXY and Bitcoin. Why is this going on? So I have two things that it leads me to believe is, first of all, we don't know how to value the dollar. It's just flip-flopping. One day it's 103, one day it's 101, one day it's 110. We have no idea the value of the dollar, and neither does the rest of the world. The second thing that shows me is whatever is going on right now with the SEC and Kraken is only multiplying the issue. And the funniest part about all this is, you guys know I've been calling for Bitcoin to be dumping. I didn't understand why is Bitcoin pumping right now, because I'm expecting a dump in Bitcoin. To me, I strongly still believe this is market manipulation. I believe you have some big actors coming in, driving up the price of Bitcoin. Let's say you had $10 million. You can move the price of Bitcoin. As Bitcoin goes up, you don't even mind selling at a loss, knowing that it's going to tank the market. You don't care what you tank the market to. And when you have a bunch of these players doing the same thing and the DXY is crashing, I don't understand how people are buying Bitcoin. The DXY is crashing and Bitcoin is also crashing.
So, Dylan, maybe the solution or the reason that Bitcoin is down today might be the Kraken news. Do you want to go into that a little bit?
Yeah, I know we're probably going to talk a little more in depth on that here in just a few minutes, but just I think the key thing to think about is, and to really know, is that Bitcoin hasn't changed. There's nothing that's changed about Bitcoin from yesterday to today to a month ago, right? Other than like it just keeps adding new blocks every 10 minutes, right? So the Bitcoin from a month ago is still the Bitcoin we know now. And it did exactly what we thought it would do in terms of operation from then until now. It's individuals, institutions, people, you and I, people listening. It's our perception of it and how we relate it to our wants, needs, desires, and goals that seems to fluctuate. So seeing like the price fluctuate like this, I mean, it's totally expected, right, to have volatility. And people are still trying to figure out how to value it in their lives, right, and in their business. And I think there's a lot of that is going on. So it's not surprising to me that we'll see these times where the Dixie is going down, where that should make Bitcoin more expensive, but Bitcoin is also going down, right? It's not too surprising. And then especially when that's coupled with news about regulation. I know that's been a big elephant in the room in the space for a while about when will the SEC come down with regulation. And I know there's a lot of people that want regulation and there's people that don't want regulation. I think there's pros and cons to both sides, but seeing a major announcement like a large exchange like Kraken feeling pressure from the SEC to cancel some of their services that appear to be pro crypto is just enough FUD to get people to kind of be skittish or change their attitude, at least in the short term, towards the market as a whole, which could be why they're selling. So those are just my thoughts on that, just on the surface.
So maybe it's possibly because of what Brian Armstrong said on Twitter that they're trying. The SEC is trying to clamp down on Americans doing staking. Patrick, what's your thoughts about that potential issue, and is it FUD?
No, I don't think it is FUD. I believe that there is something real to be said about regulations in crypto coming. We've talked about this a lot. Bitcoin is not the same as every other coin. Bitcoin has already been classified as not a security. Everything else is yet to be determined, so we're still speculating on this. We believe that Bitcoin will continue to remain a commodity because of its global standard. All around us, it's been the same commodity. We're using it as gold, as a reserve currency. So that's the idea that Bitcoiners have. The idea that all these other coins have in terms of generating profits in a way that subverts the current way of going through the SEC's process of raising funds as a company, it's definitely going to get some attention here. So regulations are coming. I don't think it is FUD. And I do think it will impact the community a lot. And I, again, would like to tell people that's why we think of Bitcoin, I would even say Litecoin, as something completely different than all the other coins.
Yeah, if I want to add another story to the mix here, there's a recent comment over in Zero Hedge about there's no soft landing coming with like the money supply. That's like press too many buttons, but the money supply is actually down. The I don't know if it's M1 or M2, but for the first couple months in a while, the amount of money in circulation is less than the previous few months. So that's unnerving, and people are basically clamping down on their spending. So, Dylan, you think that this is a sign of the times that people just don't want to spend right now?
It's possible. Are they talking about like base money or broad money with this?
Well, it says the money supply growth. The money supply went negative. So the supply, they're not injecting more currency. So that's basically like banks aren't lending. They're not creating new paper.
Yeah. So I mean, it makes sense with increasing rates, right? Obviously, people are less likely to take out loans to do anything with credit. And then I just noticed that gas, where I'm at, it's always a little more expensive. Just hit $4.25 a gallon, right? So all that talk about reducing gas prices is now going back up to being more and more expensive. And so I could imagine that people are spending less. Of course, we came out of the holidays; people spent a lot then, and people are maybe starting to feel the effects of the recession, of some of the pullbacks from the last year, or they're getting more hesitant with how they want to spend their money, knowing that there might be more shakeups to come in the future. So that's just my guesses on some of those things that are going on. So if you have tightening liquidity, and then you have hesitation or any sort of fear or apprehension in the markets, that could play out in terms of people not increasing their economic activity.
Yeah, our next story is going to hint more about adding liquidity, especially in the UK, and we'll get to that in a moment. But Patrick, I've seen prices of gas going up around where we are at here in Oregon as well. But what's your take on people tightening on spending right now?
I mean, I think it's a no-brainer. Not only are we seeing them tighten on spending, but the converse of that as well is their leverage, right? So credit card debt is going up like crazy. I think it's up at like $930 billion,
All-time high.
$930 billion in credit card debt right now. So not only are they not having money to spend, not only is there not money coming in, but there is no ability to take out loans. So there's new money not being created because no loans are being taken out. Why are there no loans? Because they can't afford a new car anymore because their debt to income ratio is so high. Their credit card utilization is up at 101% because they have fees on top of an extreme credit card limit that's maxed out. So, I mean, it's just time is just happening for foreclosures and bankruptcies, and it's not going to be great here coming up. I mean, I think, again, we tell you, if you're watching this show, please do something different than what you're doing now. If you're finding yourself in a situation where you're going, I'm not sure I'm prepared for the economic issues that are happening right now, make a change. Start going to a silver store, buy a silver dime. If that's all you can do to start, you guys hear me. I'm a crypto guy, but I'm also telling you guys it's time to be realistic. And you'll see a lot more about me coming into silver and understanding that better because I am like just itching to learn more about what's happening there. But the reality is, guys, the debt is killing us, right? Go and change your actions, do something different with your behaviors and make that speak it into existence. Say you're going to do it, go and change something tomorrow. It's like Dylan told me, I remember there was a 75 hard challenge and I sent a message to Dylan. I was like, dude, so I did a workout, but I'm like 6 hours late for a 24-hour period. Does that count as a workout still if I did it that same day? And he said, no. And I was like, okay, it doesn't count. Like, there's no way to sugarcoat it. Just by changing the metrics and me pushing the button didn't change the fact that I didn't accomplish the goal. So I abandoned the whole goal together and decided I don't want to do it. And that's a fine choice too. But the reality is I didn't fake it and say I did it. So guys, get out there, make a change. Don't fake it. Actually go do something different.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Dylan.
Oh, and just on that,
like, share, subscribe, and comment, and thumbs up if you've made it this far, because it's supposed to do something to the algorithm, and that's something we're supposed to say, and we never do it. So
yeah, this is true.
like, share, subscribe, comment. It does stuff. Says Ninja.
Yes.
Hit the button, all that good stuff.
Okay, there you guys said it, right?
It's the little things that matter. Just on that, just a real quick comment. It's just like what Patrick said is it's just the little things, just small changes. It doesn't have to be anything big or dramatic, but just little small things that you can change on a daily basis or like on a weekly basis. They'll add up over time, and you'll be surprised on how fast they add up. So you don't have to go and like if you're overwhelmed, you're like, man, I don't want to make all these big changes. This is a lot. There's a lot to do. Just like Patrick said, go buy a silver dollar. Find one somewhere and buy something. Just that small change can be the difference between being prepared or not being prepared.
Yeah, and I'm going to move things along because we have so many stories to cover, but let's share another one here. Actually, two of them. First off, I want to share. I did it again. There we go. Nope.
Did it again.
Too many buttons. Credit Suisse. We're going to talk about Europe. Now, I was listening to Cliff High, and he said there's lots. You need to listen to the international perspective. We have bank issues in Nigeria. It's happening with Turkey and Syria with the with what's going on, the earthquakes. China's got real estate issues, but also it's happening in Europe, and Europe is not far from the U.S. both in geography and also timing. So Credit Suisse just came out and said they had what they are calling something of a bank run. A lot more funds are coming out of Credit Suisse, and not only are their earnings down, but you can see as I scroll down quickly to the graph, look at this big spike down of historic levels of clients pulling their money out of the accounts there. And in addition to that story, in the UK, the government is looking at the digital pound, the CBDC, which I think I mentioned on my own Litecoin Leader channel, while banks, CEOs are restricting Bitcoin access. So everything we've been talking about starting to come to fruition. So it's starting to hit Europe, and is the US not far behind? Patrick,
Jeff, can you look at the last line of that article? Go to the very bottom of that article. It's like what stuck out to me the most. It said something like, yeah, things are really bad and it's gonna get worse. Like, no, keep going down at the bottom of the article. Like they were just so dead on it. They're like, this is so bad and it's gonna get worse.
Yeah, can't quite find the
bottom line for Zurich-based melting ice cube. Things are terrible and getting worse, is what they said.
Right, I'm on the wrong article. I'll find it while you guys are talking. Dylan, what's your take on these two articles? Well, there it is. It's on the Credit Suisse one. So, Dylan, between what Credit Suisse is doing, the people pulling money out of the banks, and the UK getting ready to launch the digital CBDC, the digital pound sterling, have we been foreshadowing for the last 7 episodes we've been talking so far?
Yeah. I mean, it's something to pay attention to and be wary of. Like Patrick said before, is you got to be practical. And when there's times of stress in any sort of system, or there's fear in the markets, people do the things that are practical. And one of the practical things people do is they try to control as much resources as they can, right? They try to get their hands and solidify their own individual control of those resources. I mean, you see this on the global stage too, when there's potential international conflict, is people try to lock down and control their resources. So people pulling their money out of the bank, right? That is just a sign that, hey, look, if there's lack of trust or less trust, they want to have access to that capital should they need it. And if it's in a bank, they may not have access to the capital when they need it, or they have to go through someone else. And so they're seeing the writing on the wall. Other people are seeing it. And then to talk about the CBDCs and those being launched, I mean, that's another mechanism of control, right? So if you have the population getting a little more skittish and trying to take things in their own hands, right? That's capital fleeing your institutions. That's capital that starts going out of the reach of the state, of the government, of the controlling parties. And something like a CBDC is something to give them more leverage, more control over the people that are part of that system. And the whole goal is for them is to make it easy for money to flow into something, make it easy for resources to accrue to them, and make it hard for resources to leave, right? And if they do leave, be able to exact the payment for leaving, right? We talked about that in our last week's episode as well, when we talked about that kind of global tax on California for people leaving. And so that's the kind of thing that I see when I hear these stories. So yeah.
It reminds me of what Joe Brown says, right? Like, when money is in abundance, then it's cheap to borrow money. But the problem is the other side. When money is not in abundance, which is what we're seeing now, and as it becomes less available, what is going to happen? It's the inverse of that, right? Interest rates are going to continue to do what they're doing, and CBDCs are their rescue plan. It's going to be awesome. Roses are smelling, and all the things that my wife tries to tell me when I'm worried, and she says like, "Oh, it's going to be all right." Like, your CBDCs are the answer. At church, you would expect your pastor to talk about it, right? Like, they'll be preaching CBDCs from the pulpit probably, because they're our Lord and Savior. Guys, come on. Seriously, It's just another version of what we have now. All this whole thing of exchanges too. It's like they just want your money. They want to become the new bank of the assets and wealth that you have. Don't give them anything. That's the one thing the silver and gold bugs get right. They
it's
don't
all
give it away. They keep it in their safe or somewhere safe, and they don't give it to you, and you don't know they have it. You don't know who owns silver. We don't talk about it.
No.
They figured it out. The crypto community is just like ready to tweet about it.
that's the theme here. It's like they want control, they want access, they want to control the CBDCs, they want to control your spending with their regulations and have programmable money, and then they want to have like control everything you have access to. But that leads into our other story about control of energy, and we have another story that comes out about if you remember from, I guess it's like 4 or 5 months ago with the Nord Stream 2 that blew up in the middle of between Germany and Russia. And that story's come out now that it seems to be like, what really played out? So Dylan, I know that you wanted to get on this one. So what's your take on this story?
I mean, it's not surprising. This is commentary that I know a lot of people had when the gas pipeline was bombed in the first place. And it's just another example of just in my mind. So I'm not surprised, but it's also just another example about the games being played at scale and the media manipulation of the people at the same time, right? Because the story happened, it was in the news for a little bit, and then it just kind of disappeared, right? So big shocker, and there was a bunch of finger pointing and all that. And then now we get intel, and of course this is alleged. The intel hasn't been officially verified, but it seems to be probable that this is what happened. It's just from when I see this, it's just like countries are trying to establish control over resources. That's what they're trying to do, right? And they're maneuvering to have that control and have that power because there's a power struggle right now. And in part, we're going to talk about it in a minute, but in part, it's due to all these new technologies coming up. It's due to economy shifting on what people want, what people need, how connected we are. So this is all is playing out, and I think converging at a very interesting time.
Patrick, what's your take on this this enlightened news that we all kind of guessed already on this pipeline?
So I want to read the official statement from the United States government. Right? Okay, I'm going to stop there. So I don't even need to do it because they're already coming out saying like this is all false. Before they even have an opportunity to like clarify the narrative, they're trying to gain control of what's happening. So to me, guys, like we aren't surprised, right? We're not surprised by this. Does this really surprise us? Honestly, we're not sitting here going like, oh my gosh, what big news. I can't believe this happened. Holy moly. Wow. No, we're like, okay, I guess we're not so crazy. Like most of us are thinking, even if you didn't know what the truth was, you knew that that wasn't it.
Yeah, I think the interesting part of this story is the timing and also the fact that if you look back when this first happened and all that's happened in the last 4 or 5 months, there's been a lot of stuff that's popped out. And people are trying to think, well, we forgot about this, but it's still a big story. But there's been so many other big stories that's out there. It just kind of gets lost in the wash with the latest and greatest stuff that's coming out and continues to come out. But it's all about control. It's all about being able to control people. And Cliff High said it again, but he would harken back to the Weimar Republic and how that went into hyperinflation. And people stopped going to work when it didn't make any sense to go. You only get you're going to work for a month and you didn't have enough for even a day's worth of wages from that full month of work. So they just stopped going. So that could be where we're heading sooner rather than later. And the only saving grace is that it's probably going to happen, as we've been saying, and as Lynette Zhang was saying, between now and June, which will be in warmer weather. So we don't have to worry about people freezing because they don't have this fuel.
Yeah.
I know that's go ahead, Dylan.
Oh, I know that's totally true. Like when I would work an hourly job or whatnot, like working as a bartender or a server, I know if shifts weren't going to give me enough money, I just wouldn't do it. Right. So it's like there was a certain limit to where it's like it's not even worth my time, even though you can make some money. It's like not even worth my time to show up. Right. I'd rather just have the day off and do whatever else I need to do than go and make, $50. Right. And so there are cutoffs. And so just like you're saying with the Weimar Republic, if people start looking at their jobs and it's like, what's the point of me going in, working for someone else, doing stuff I don't like when I can't afford to live afterwards? Like they're just going to not show up. They're not going to do it.
That's a great comment because Patrick and I were just talking about the story popped out recently in Oregon that they want to go after people's, I think it's the servers' tips money and tax that. They want visibility and they want access. They want a piece of everything, which goes back to the other earlier story about the staking. They want a piece of that, but you have to declare that you're staking, or if you're just doing it in a decentralized environment where they don't have visibility to it, who knows? So, but we've got two more stories about jobs as well before we get into Bitcoin and everything else. So, like I said, there's a lot going on. So let's talk about the last two stories. The first one is about the jobs. The jobs are looking ugly. We knew that. We've been hearing that for a while. Massive tech companies are laying off people, and it's this one's tries to put a positive spin on it, like put lipstick on the pig, say not as bad as you think. And then
It's
the
not
other story,
bad, Jeff. It's not bad. They released the jobs report. It's very good.
It's
okay.
all good. It was growing. I think they were trying to say basically it was growing before the pandemic, growing before this year. So they were at record highs already.
No. That's not true. They actually went back and revised the jobs number down. So they actually were like, oops, sorry, we messed it up by like 1 million jobs. So as a matter of fact, that's not true. They went already and revised that and said, no, we actually lost jobs. But now, don't ignore the headlines. People are losing their jobs, but still, we have more jobs. Ignore what's happening. Ignore the headlines. Just don't even think about it. Just understand the government says we're gaining jobs.
I'm sure they're going to redefine jobs soon. But the other story about employment is regarding the other thing that's going to be making people unemployed, which is Chat GPT. I know that Economic Ninja was talking about that with us in Vancouver, Patrick, about Chat GPT. That could be either it could be a boom if people know how to capitalize on it, but there's going to put a lot of people out of work in the next couple of years. So, Patrick, what's your thoughts on the AI and Chat GPT putting people out of work as well?
I mean, garbage in, garbage out. It's pretty simple. Even Google came out today and said that they're releasing their new version of their AI tool, and their stocks are still tanking. So, at the end of the day, to me, this is just another fad because the utility could be there and it might allow students to cheat, but the teachers are already developing tools and partnering with Chat GPT to be able to have these tools and resources to identify the fraud. So it's almost as if you are saying in crypto that you can like hide your money and the government's not going to catch you and you don't need to pay your taxes. Eventually, you're going to want to spend it, and then you're going to have to figure out why you didn't report it. And eventually, you might not get caught now doing the cheating in school, kids, but you're going to end up getting caught at the end of the day. But I also tell the children, if you're not cheating, you're not trying, because in the world, you're not going to have to start brand new. You could take someone's idea and redo it. But when it comes to AI taking over jobs, I mean, I think it's just a natural evolution. When technology comes in, it replaces human labor. You replace human labor with machine capital. So it's pretty simple. They don't insure you, and you can now have a sports editor write 17 columns in like a second.
Well,
I'm a sports writer now too, I think, if I use it.
I have some comments on that. I agree with the last part you said. I don't think it's a fad. I think maybe the specific bursting onto the scene use of Chat GPT, that kind of thing could be a fad, but AI is going to change everything. So when I look at something like Chat GPT, what I see is a narrow AI that, I mean, it's narrow. It's a language engine, right? And it hasn't been applied to specific situations. But when you take that a step further, and of course it's going to get better over the next year, 2 years, 3 years, as more and more inputs are connected, as more and more people start utilizing that fundamental machine learning or AI technology for specific applications, it's going to infiltrate everything. Everywhere there's an expert, what AI is going to do is it's going to be able to capture the knowledge of that expert and then bring it to an individual, so reduce the amount of time to receiving and getting access to that information. And then the people that are going to do the best are the ones that are able to take that and then apply it to solve real problems. And it's gonna happen everywhere. Like I have in my truck, I have kind of a assisted driving, kind of like it has sensors. So if I go out of the lane, it like kind of pulls my steering wheel back to the center.
Yeah, I love that thing.
that's an application where AI is going to take over. I mean, you see it with Teslas, but where it can actually start training you to be a better driver. Because when I first got the truck, I noticed I would be closer to the lane and I'd feel the steering wheel pulling me back a lot further. It was weird. I hadn't used it. But now after using it, I hardly ever get that sensation anymore because the truck has almost trained me to drive within the lane better. And so it's going to start applying to so many of those areas. It's going to apply to anything that's scripted. It's going to be able to take over that with the combo of like sales rules, and combine that with like deep fakes, being able to hear someone's voice. It could basically just have you read a script and create a digital language engine of yourself. And then you can have sales teams that are run completely by this chat GPT like thing. And they have all the perfect scripts for all the situations, and they're in your voice. Right. So that's gonna have a tremendous effect on the job market, because
I would like one of those cars for sure. I want one of those cars, but I do have to say, I don't like the idea that it's training me. I think I'm gonna start letting it buzz me, and I don't care anymore because I don't want to be trained by my car.
Well, it's gonna be able to train you for like say firearms. We talk about firearms a lot, right? The app that's gonna be able to train you with that, right? Through like a haptic feedback glove, where it like this is like stuff like I geek out on this, but this is stuff that's gonna happen with these things. And if we think job losses are bad now, what's gonna happen is that they're gonna increase, right? All these jobs that can be automated away will be automated away. All those call centers, they're gonna be automated away. You know, anything. I know that they talk about truck drivers as that as an industry, they'll start being automated away. There's a lot of things that now we're going to do with all these people, and so this will change the whole dynamics of the economy. And we're seeing it. I mean, I know there's the meme of like, hey, you wanted to raise minimum wage, and then now look, you raise minimum wage to $20 an hour. Now McDonald's doesn't need workers, where everything is just automated. You go in there, they have machines doing everything. And that's going to happen more and more and more. Now it's exciting, but if you don't prepare for it, right, it can be definitely overwhelming. Or if you're in a position that is going to be automated away, you need to start thinking now what you're going to do.
Yeah, we may look back and this could be much like an industrial revolution, more of an AI revolution of like the jobs and people needing to find different ways to apply their time and get compensated for what they're contributing to society. It'll be a different dynamic for sure. But speaking of scripting and looking at different and letting machines help our world, so let's switch over to Bitcoin mining. So Patrick, this is your segment this week. Let's talk about the hash rate and where's Bitcoin heading in your viewpoint. Where are we at?
Okay. Can I just take a second and step back because I am still stuck at how I can now utilize ChatGPT. I have written down some ideas. Dylan, we need to talk offline. I have some great ideas. Okay. Now that that's out of the way,
we can do a whole AI episode.
When it comes to the Bitcoin mining, guys, for me, again, I just want to reiterate what is happening. The blockchain is strong. It is still running. It hasn't gone down. Miners are adding hash rate. They're continuing to improve the network. They're continuing to improve security. This is not stopping. The questions I'm having right now are not in relation to hash rate, because we know what that's going to continue to do. And it doesn't actually have anything to do with the supply side either, because we know what's going to happen there. My big question is something feels off, because I haven't yet seen the miner capitulation that I would expect to see at this point. So if right now miners are continuing to turn on, it means that Bitcoin is still too profitable for them. So they are not shutting off. And I haven't seen that huge dip again. And right now, this $24,000 Bitcoin that we were kind of hitting at right now we're sitting at 21. This 21,000 Bitcoin today is more along the lines of what I was expecting. I'm expecting a dip. I'm expecting us to get far below 17,000. That's what my heart and my gut tells me, is something is just not right. Like this is not, it's manipulated money that's coming into our system. The exchange is saying we're having less Bitcoin than we've ever had on exchange before, which to me indicates a very bullish behavior. It doesn't look like they're ready to sell right now. It looks like they're waiting for things not to sell. So I think they're holding on. I think Bitcoin is being held in wallets. It's not being moved. The hodlers are hodling. The whales are stacking. Bitcoin's going to go down, is my opinion. Could it go up from here? Sure. But that's just not what I'm feeling right now. And when it just comes to my minor intuition, I guess I would call it, it just doesn't feel like it's done cyclically what I would expect it to do. So right now, I'm waiting for minor capitulation, or the other side of this would be energy demand must rise, and so must the price of energy. If the energy consumption increases and so does the cost of the energy, they're not going to be able to afford mining. So it's one or the other. The price will come down or their costs will go up, but miners have to be shut down before I start feeling like we're ready for the next bull run. And I just don't feel like we're there yet. I'm still targeting May, June, July, August, right around there being the bottom of the Bitcoin heading up.
Now, it seems like it's going to be an interesting summer. But speaking of mining, now we know that when that phase of mining, let's talk about the other kind of mining and the actual, with Bitcoin being the digital gold. Let's talk about gold and silver. So let's go over to that, and where I wanted to present something this week, which is about what's the supply looking like. And I found these charts. This goes back from December, and this is a topic that was big at the VRIC in Vancouver. And here's some of the charts of first off, some definitions. COMEX, that's the exchange in the US. LBMA is the London Bullion Market Association. So that's the UK version of silver and gold. And if you look at all the charts throughout all of this, you see the supply of silver and gold going down, down, down. They have less and less inventory. They are not just buying silver and gold, but they are pulling it out of these major exchanges and taking possession of the actual metal. Yes, they're trading paper, but for the most part, they're hoarding real silver and real gold. And I know this is something that you are fixated on right now and paying a lot of attention to, Patrick. What's your take on these charts?
Okay, here's what has really gotten to me lately. As I've learned the value of real money, right? I'm going to say that silver and gold, really, there's nothing like them either, right? We always talk about Bitcoin being in a class of its own, but silver and gold and these precious metals are also a commodity and a class of their own. There's nothing like holding gold in your hand. It's not the same thing like having Bitcoin on your wallet. It's just different, right? When we start to talk about Bitcoin, one of the fundamental ideas of economics and basic econ 101 is supply and demand. We understand the demand of Bitcoin. We understand the supply of Bitcoin. We understand the supply of Bitcoin is fixed and is never going to change. We'll always understand that. We never have to worry about that. But what is the supply of of silver? What is the supply of gold coming into the market? The idea that we have any clue of what's actually out there in terms of physical silver ounces, it's ridiculous. I don't think we actually know. And then what I've noticed when I'm at all these companies are out there at the Silver Symposium, when you're at the VRIC, lots of gold companies and silver companies out there claiming they're finding a lot of gold, claiming they are partnering with new discoveries. But I question how much silver is actually coming out of the ground. I'm wondering what the supply side of silver is really at. And what we keep seeing is the paper version of it. Like one day you'll have 1,000 ounces or 1,000,000 ounces gone, and the next day you have 2,000,000 ounces back on. It just, again, I don't understand why it's doing that. But the physical silver is what I'm really interested in. And what we're seeing is an increase in premiums over the years. The reason why silver is needed. It's needed for many things, not just as a store of value, but it's a utility, right? You need silver when you're in medical devices, and then you need silver in medicine. You need silver in electronics. You need copper to build homes. These are the types of things that run our economy. So for us, I feel like we hear a lot of really cool things. And even the idea of like, let's take Shiba Inu, GameStop, Bitcoin, all these really great flashy words. And I think it's just giving the economy something else to be distracted about. And we are missing something really huge that's happening right now in front of our eyes. And we're not taking time to stop and figure it out. So I don't know what's going on with the silver supply. I'm going to find out.
Well, I do know that Lynette Zhang did make that comment. I forget what year she quoted it as, but like about 15 years or so, 15 years ago, she was saying that for every ounce of gold that's out there on paper, there's like 86,000 claims to it. It was a crazy, crazy large number. What it was is just like there's like the paper contracts compared to the actual ounces is way astronomical, and people are starting to realize this, and that's why there's so much. That's another reason why there's so much demand for the physical. But Dylan, here's a thought for you, and I know I'm putting you on the spot with this. Let's just say you've got 10 grand right now, and your choices are 10 grand of gold, 10 grand of Bitcoin, or half and half. What do you want to, or you can replace gold with silver. What's your recipe? Not financial advice. What are you thinking right now?
Man, that's a tough one. I guess I'll walk you through like what I would think about like for what I need that for. So if I need quick access to it, I'd probably put in something like Bitcoin, something that I can then convert to US dollars real quick online. There's a market, there's liquidity for it. That my only risk or hesitation there is that, like Patrick's talking about, if we do experience a dip, I could lose a significant amount of purchasing power with that in a short period of time. So if I needed it for short term, that's not as good of a deal. If I just needed it for long term and didn't need to tap into it, again, I would say something like Bitcoin when it came to $10,000. If I wanted to maybe go a little bit more diverse, and I was like, you know what, I think there might be a short-term event that creates a shock in the financial system, or I might need to barter in the near term. I would probably split it up and I'd probably buy silver over gold with it. Probably, maybe $8,000 in Bitcoin, just let that sit there, and then buy about $2,000 or so worth of silver. And have that on hand. So I have that in my possession so that I'm both protected long-term and short-term for any sort of wild events, because I don't think Bitcoin's going away, even if there's some big event. And I think, if there is, then $2,000 worth of silver is probably gonna be worth a lot more than $2,000 worth of silver. So that'd be kind of what I would do, or how I'd think through it.
Patrick, I'm going to pose you the similar question. I know that we've already talked about this, but share your opinion with the audience.
I'd buy 100% silver today. Or the reality is, if I had it, I know exactly what I'd be buying. There's this big old 7-ounce gold nugget, and I would go buy that. I would try to make a deal. I want that gold nugget, and here's the reason why. If I can get my hands on that much silver that quickly, I'm going to take it. Because one thing that for me is hard to get is silver. I just don't know how to make silver. I can always make more Bitcoin. I know how to find Bitcoin. I know how to make Bitcoin. I can trade coins and swap coins and use the crypto I have to increase the number of Satoshis I have. But I have learned I'm behind on the silver game, so I'll take the silver.
Yeah, I think the answer is very interesting. It's a great conversation. It's starting to happen more and more. We've seen it at the VRIC. We're seeing the Silver Symposium. And that's why Patrick and I are visiting them so much and talking to both communities, because I think both sides have a very good, valid viewpoint. But I tend to agree with Patrick. I think that even though I'm a crypto guy and I like Bitcoin and Litecoin, the digital gold, the digital silver, I believe that the scarcity of the silver and the demand in the market and supply and liquidity in the market is such that I think it's going to be harder to acquire silver in the next 3 to 6 months, whereas it's going to be easier to get Bitcoin in the next 3 to 6 months. So that's why I would lean more towards silver versus gold, although I would take both or either one of them or a combination thereof over most any other asset class. So, okay. So
yeah, if I had like my real way to split it, I'd just keep it in USDT for like maybe 5,000 of it, or USDC for 5,000 of it. Yeah, USDC. And then I'd put 2,500 to gold, 2,500 to silver, wait for the Bitcoin dip, buy some Bitcoin. And when Bitcoin hits 100,000, I'd sell all my Bitcoin and wait for it to dip again. And then I'd rinse and repeat. That's the idea. Stack sats, stack gold, stack silver. Just use them against each other to increase my positions.
And we're all just taking educated guesses here, but we like both. We don't know which one's going to pop first, but exposure to both gives you the opportunity for whichever one pops to get more of the other thing and balance it out. Exactly. So that's the kind of game we're playing. But we've got 2 more crypto stories, and then we got to go to the prepper side, and then finally close out with woo. This show's getting a little long, but there's a lot of content. So let's move it along here. So 2 more crypto topics today.
I do want to say something on that real quick, Jeff.
Go for it.
Silver, sorry.
Go for it.
Silver, like there's a whole network of people that love silver and want to transact in silver and provide goods and services in that. But there's also a lot of. So if you are going to go down that route, or if you've gone down that route, then you probably should make sure you're in touch with that network so you can utilize the silver should you need to use it. That's my perspective on it, and that'd be my prepper advice is connect with people that are utilizing that type of money um, in their own economy and become a part of it. Because otherwise, you might just have a bunch of silver, but if you don't have anyone to trade with or to give it to, you're SOL. So.
Yeah, make those relationships. So Patrick and I work with that too. We recommend working with a local coin shop and where you're going to get it. But if you get stuck, that's where you reach out to us and we'll help you with the liquidity. But both those assets are pretty liquid if you know the right people, and that's us. So, all right, two last articles on crypto. First off, I don't even know who brought this one up, but I'm just going to throw it up on the screen. It is that Dylan. Take it away.
Yeah. So I have this on here. It was just Google Trends on gaming coins. And this way I wanted to tie into with the AI we talked about earlier and, you know, the real economy that we always try to get you back to, real things, real assets, and something to be on the lookout for. So this peaked in the fall. It looks like it was the fall of 2021 when Facebook became Meta. And there was a huge, that was like the top of the bull run before the Fed started, the second bull run before the Fed started tightening. And I already see all the influencers and everyone out there, if you're following the crypto space, trying to sow the seeds of the next big gaming crypto run. And I think it's going to be a complete scam or something to be very, very cautious with. Now, there could be money to be made. But my view is that so many of these games are just gimmicks to extract value from people. And you gotta be very careful. Like if you look at Axie Infinity, which is one of the darlings of the last game run, its economy completely broke and it collapsed tremendously in value. And one of the big problems was when you start pairing a monetization of a game with a game, the game doesn't produce anything real, right? It entertains you. But if the only real thing the game produces is that money that you can take outside the game, that you have to take outside the game to sell, to actually utilize for real things, what's going to happen is people are just going to start playing the game for the money. And that's going to drive people that play the game for fun away from the game because they're just going to be outcompeted by people that set up click farms to do that. And they're definitely going to be outcompeted by AI, like we talked about earlier. So if you have a monetization in my view, and I think this is an interesting topic to talk about, if you have a monetization incentive in a game, right? AI is already smarter than you. It's smarter than me. It's smarter than Patrick, smarter than Jeff, right? When applied in certain areas, maybe not as a whole, but in narrow areas, it's smarter than us. And AI is going to be applied to any sort of gaming, any sort of online metaverse situation. And it's going to be like, in my mind, I like to picture it of like the Native Americans back in the day, leading the bison herd into a canyon. And then the rest of their buddies are just up on the edge of that canyon and they can just shoot them because the bison have nowhere to go. Like I see that as what's going to happen with the combo of AI and then some of these kind of metaverse plans. But of course, probably be a little more sophisticated and set up like a casino to where you keep coming back thinking that you have a chance, but the house is always just skimming a little bit off top here and there, just like farming you for your resources, farming you to make you go out to the external world, bring resources in, and the people that are in control of that are just extracting that value. So it's going to be one of those topics that is hyped up, that is going to create a lot of FOMO. But I implore you to learn about it, to study about it. That's why I'm bringing it up. And again, go back to the basics that we teach is focus on the real things, right? Focus on real things versus like these highly speculative things that may or may not exist. So that's what I talk about there.
Yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying there. And that we're actually, Patrick, I just talked about with our community and with our clients, like I did analysis, like what I planned, like the big coins that I was planning for last year. And we're going to do a retrospective look back at it and see, what did I learn? What did I get right? What did I get wrong? But I saw some of these things. I was more on the gaming side. I thought that there was an opportunity there, but I think that, these, along with NFTs, along with metaverses, these spaces, these ecosystems, what's their viability? What's their use case beyond just the space itself? I think it's a great discussion point. Obviously, it's that could be a show unto itself, but I think that's a great point that you illustrate there. So, all
Comment
right.
below if you want us to do a show on that.
Yeah, absolutely. We'd love to hear about that, and good call out. We want to get feedback from everybody on these shows. Like, we love doing these shows and having this discussion. This is just three guys chatting about whatever we see that during the week, and we've seen a lot this week. So we want to hear back from the community that's watching these shows and what you guys think. We want to be engaging with you guys, and maybe you wanted us to do a live stream at some point. Maybe you want us to interact with you live. If you want to do that, let us know. And if you like our guests, we're going to have a special guest next week. Chris from Financial Preppers is going to be on, so we're lining up more guests as well. So lots of things are happening. We want to hear from you. We value every viewer and appreciate all those likes and subscribes and thumbs ups and hitting that notification button. So I think I hit them all there. So the last topic before we go woo and we talk about the big game this weekend a little bit, kind of, sort of. The second name of our show is Economic Preppers. So preppers. Patrick, I know you had a call out this week for something that people in the community might want to know about and consider adding to their prepping supply.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm always looking at some great deals. This guy's normally $300. It's just a ReadyWise food bucket. It's a 30-year, 25-year shelf life food. And normally these guys are too expensive and just not worth the money. But right now through Midway, you get them for $104. I find that to be a fantastic value and a quick way to stock up on some emergency food. If you haven't already started, this is a quick way to do it, and I highly recommend it for the value. So I just want to share that with you guys. Jeff, we'll make sure to include the link. But if you guys are following our Telegram, I'll post it in the Telegram as well. Those are the kind of things that we want to keep each other informed about. Really quick, easy way to have a little bit of extra food, and all you need is some hot water for that.
And that's a great call out. And if you guys see anything out there and want us to let us know and let our viewers know that if something that's really important that you want to get out there in the prepping community, we know a lot of preppers. Chris over at Financial Preppers, I'll put it up on his Discord as well. Let's help each other out and grow this community and help one another get prepared, so we're not scared for what the eventualities that we all know are coming. We don't know when. So that's basically our show for this week, except for the woo-woo. So this weekend, there seems to be a large football game with a big viewership.
Bucket one, bucket two, or bucket three today? What are we talking about?
I'm going to say this is a lot more bucket one than you would want to believe. And I'm going to provide a lot of links for you guys to watch and learn more. But I did a lot of homework on this one. I did a lot of work. This is probably going to be my most involved woo-woo that I've done on the show yet. So this weekend, so this weekend the game is called a Super Bowl. But if you slide one letter to the left and call it the Superb Owl, it's actually that is another name for the game, and it's been a play out there. So let me first get to my notes on this because I made a lot of notes.
I think we can end there. I believe you. That's easy to believe. Bucket one, Superb Owl. Woo!
What does that mean? What's the Superb Owl?
So first off, how did the Super Bowl get its name? Like that, the story is that Lamar Hunt, who owned the Kansas City Chiefs, his grandson was playing with the Super Bowl, and he said, "Oh, that's pretty cool. Like, how about a Super Bowl, like the Rose Bowl or the Orange Bowl?" And that's how it came to be, as opposed to the AFC NFC Championship game for the first 2 years. The third matchup became the Super Bowl. But there's been plays on words on that, and then the NFL has been litigious about their copyrights. So to get around that, the Superb Owl has been used a lot, and it was even used by Stephen Colbert. And Stephen Colbert used it when he was on Comedy Central. And I won't play the whole clip, but I'll share. Let me share. Get back to the sharing. There we go. In the interest of time. So there you see there's Stephen Colbert. He did a Superb Owl bit for a while. Brennan's going to the Super Bowl. Now, the owl is a symbol that's used by the Illuminati and refers to the goddess Minerva, or the goddess of war. And the football and war are kind of linked together. Now, there's a lot of I'm hearkening back to the earlier story that we did, which was about the Grammys and how the satanic performance that happened in the Grammys. Some people are just saying that's just drawing more eyeballs, but there's already eyeballs on the Super Bowl. Okay, in the Super Bowl, the halftime show in the last 10 years or so, there's been a lot of Illuminati type images and imageries that have been there with Madonna and Lady Gaga and Katy Perry. And Katy Perry is on record
Beyonce.
now. Beyonce, correct. And it's all in there. It's all in my notes, and I'm just sharing it for everybody. But there's the references to the Masonic and Illuminati symbolism with the checkerboards and two pillars and the Masonics. There's a lot of dark history of the Super Bowl with human trafficking too, and that's kind of tied in there as well. But the artists in the last 10-ish years or so, with we got away from the icons like Prince and Aerosmith and Diana Ross. We got to Madonna, Beyonce, Katy Perry, Lady Gaga, The Weeknd, and now we have Rihanna coming out. There's a lot of symbolism that's been involved in all their performances, from ascending down upon high, like the demon coming down from on high. The owl is a reference that's used by Bohemian Grove and the Illuminati. The owl is a reference to the Illuminati, so it's out there. So I will provide links for more details in all the videos, so you can actually see the symbolism that's called out, and it's right there in front of your face. You've got the checkerboards.
What's the big deal about a Super Bowl? Who cares? Like, it's the Super Bowl. It's a football game. Nothing happens at a football game.
I am glad you asked that question, because there's the reticular activation system, or RAS. And what that is that when you have a lot of people that are watching something all at once, their mindset starts to get all aligned. So now everybody on their frequencies start to manifest the same thing. So if you're doing a ritualistic, regardless if you know it's a ritual or not, and you're saying, hey, this is satanic, why am I watching this? But you're watching the Super Bowl anyway. It's the most watched event in the United States every single year, and probably worldwide, except for like the World Cup. So it's a very large audience that they have. So you have a lot of eyeballs watching these performances, and whether they know it or not, you've had it also happens at the opening and closing ceremonies of the Olympics and some other performances, like at CERN. You have satanic elements and Illuminati elements, anywhere from the all-seeing eye, or to the triangle, or to everything that's Masonic that's out there, whether you know that's what it is or not. And the child trafficking and child abuse, all these things that are there. If you get people all watching this and thinking about it, you get that mindset that what you're viewing affects your frequency and your mindset, and you start manifesting it subconsciously. So that's kind of like, not only do the Illuminati want to tell you this story and put it out there and saying, hey, we're going to do this anyway, but we have to, as part of our belief system, we have to tell you, but they're also getting buy-in from all the viewership of being a passive and not even a willing participant in the ceremony that is these events. So pay attention to the Superb Owl halftime show with Rihanna this coming Sunday. And look, check out the links that I'm going to provide.
I don't even want to watch football anymore. I don't even like it. I have decided not to do it.
Let's watch the Grammys instead.
No, Caitlin told me about that. I was like, Caitlin, what are you talking about now? Now you're bringing up this stuff to me. I was like, what has Jeff done to you? And she shows it to me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, how is this not all over? Oh, it is all over Twitter. Oh my gosh. Like, I can't believe this is really happening in our world. It's so ridiculous to me, the idea that people believe in Satan and they believe in satanic rituals happening around us, that they ignore everything else that they could be looking at. It's like, open your eyes, guys. Where there is evil, there is good. We got to start focusing on the right stuff, guys. Like, the evil is all around us. Just don't watch it. Don't participate in it. And set your eyes on what is true and noble and lovely. And let's work together and love our community. It's that simple. This is evil, and I don't want to end on an evil note. And this frightens me. And I don't even like owls anymore.
One last point, and I want to show this image, which is also another allusion to owls.
What?
The traffic pattern, the strange road layout. If you've ever driven around DC or traveled through it, it's really tough to navigate. There is an owl pattern to the road system around the Capitol. And it's not highlighted very well, but there is an owl. This is a picture.
No, I can see it. That's like really there. What the hell is going on?
Bucket 1, by the way, that is bucket 1. That's a fact.
The map of the White House.
That is a map of the Capitol building area in Washington,
I'm going to
D.C.
Google Earth that right now.
Yeah. I've driven around that area. It is crazy to drive around, and this is why it's right. And actually, there is a inverted pentagram in the DC roadmap system too.
Oh my gosh, it's legitimately there.
And
It
I
looks
don't
just
mean
like that.
we're not trying to scare you. We're trying to
No,
prepare
but what's
you.
the significance and the symbolism? What is the symbolism of the owl?
The symbolism of the owl is back to Minerva, which the owl represents Minerva, who was the god of war. And this is what the Illuminati adopt, and it's at Bohemian Grove. There's a giant owl there. The Illuminati uses as symbolism in their rituals. The owl is a symbol of their satanic belief system. It's there. The owl is part of it.
Well, for all those of you that like owls, I want you to know that you shouldn't anymore.
Well,
that's some scary shit, Jeff. I don't want to know that we're like driving around on owl roads. I'm so glad I've never been to DC. It's not even really part of the US anyways, is it?
No, it's not since 1871. But hey, you asked me for these kinds of stories, so I'm providing them.
Well, yeah, because the reality is just because I don't understand it doesn't mean that it's not true. And I try to stick with bucket ones, at least for this show. I'm hoping we stick more with bucket ones, even though sometimes I don't believe they're bucket ones. The aerial view is hard to deny. So I'm shocked that it just keeps happening. And I don't know, where are the good men? Like, evil thrives at the indifference of good men. It's time for us to stand up and do something and say something. Jeff, you should not be watching The Superb Owl.
I will be watching the game. I've watched every game for probably like the last 40 years. That's just
Jeff, this is not even an important Superb Owl for you.
It is.
Go
I grew up.
Patriots.
I grew up as an Eagles fan, so I have a vested interest. So I'm going to be watching the game. But yes, I wanted to clarify, and I thought this was very timely to put out this particular woo-woo story given the events this weekend. So, Dylan, you're awfully quiet. Do you have any comments on the Superb Owl? That's a Superb Owl 57 this weekend.
Yeah. Hopefully I can come through there. It's bit cutting out a little bit, but I think one thing to take away, and it does look like an owl, is that there's a lot of symbolism that's been built into human culture and human history, and in the building of cities and everything like that. And I think it'd be foolish to just assume that the belief systems and the people behind actually going out and funding and requiring certain cities look like these things to represent these symbols.
Come on back, Dylan. I was hanging on those words.
Well,
sorry,
there he is.
Got out there. Yeah,
hanging on those symbols.
Yeah. I was talking too much about the symbolism, and the internet gods cut me out, right? But no, I was just saying that I think it's expected that you should expect these things, as symbolism, to be around, rather than not around, because people have created symbolism for things throughout our entire history. So it'd be foolish to think that they aren't.
Yeah, I think that there's the history of why you use these symbols may or may not be known by those who choose them, but they're hidden in plain sight too. So you got to be careful of what you see and take everything with a grain of salt. So there's been a lot said today. Patrick, what are your thoughts to close out for today?
Again, guys, our goal here is to make a change, to help educate. Please do something with this information. That's all I'm going to say. Again, you guys are all family. We're all in this together. I encourage you, I implore you, make a change, see something, open someone else's eyes. But at the end of the day, if this show doesn't change anything that you do, if we're not able to help affect change, then let us know, because I don't want to keep doing it if that's not what's going to help. So make sure, just get out there and make a change.
Yeah, and get the word out as well. Share out these. If you're enjoying this content and you want to see more, let us know and share it out to help us grow and build a bigger audience and help more people. So, Dylan, any parting thoughts?
Like, comment, subscribe.
There we go. Nice and succinct. I
Yeah.
love it. So, everybody, this was a longer episode. We hope you like the content. Please leave a comment. Let us know what you think. Enjoy the game, whatever you view or don't, whatever you see or don't see, or hopefully you can, if you see it, you can just say, oh, well, there it is again. You just brush over it because you know better now. So that makes you prepared and not scared. So, well, all that said for today, for Dylan, for Patrick, and myself, I want to say thank you for viewing, and we'll see you next time.